dear to Lord Krishna. Sri Krishna knew that his elder brother, Lord Baladev, was arranging her marriage elsewhere. And since he did not dare to go against the arrangement of Baladev, he advised Arjuna to kidnap Subhadra. So when all of them were on a pleasure trip on the Raivata hill, Arjuna managed to kidnap Subhadra according to the plans of Sri Krishna. Sri Baladev was very angry at Arjuna and he wanted to kill him. But Lord Krishna implored his brother to excuse Arjuna. Then Subhadra was duly married with Arjuna, and Abhimanyu was born of Subhadra. At the premature death of Abhimanyu, Subhadra was very mortified. But on the birth of Parikshit, she was happy and solaced. Some of the important great ladies of Mahabharata and Krishna Lila. Tam bandhu magatam drishtva dharma putra sahanuja dhritarashtra yuyutsuscha sutta saradvata prata gandhari draupadi brahman subhadra chottara kripi anyascha jamaya pandor gataya shashruta striya. When they saw Vidura return to the palace, all the inhabitants, Maharaj Yudhishthira, his younger brothers, Dhritarashtra, Satyaki, Sanjaya, Kripacharya, Kunti, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, Uttara, Kripi, many other wives of the Kauravas and other ladies with children, all hurried to him in great delight. It so appeared that they had regained their consciousness after a long period. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Neva Shesha Shanivadi Paschata Deshatarine. So everyone was there when Vidura returned from his long pilgrimage. We may remember how Vidura left after he was insulted. Specifically, he was insulted by Duryodhana. Geez, my brain is blanking out. Dhritarashtra's son.
Duryodhana.
Like, boy, oh boy, brain is going. Duryodhana, of course, insulted by Duryodhana, and rather than bear that, and rather than see the upcoming fratricidal war, which would cause him too much pain, he went on pilgrimage. And that's glossed over very quickly in yesterday's verse, that he went and met with Maitreya. And now, very quickly, after glossing over that, he returns home. And everyone was in such ecstasy to see Vidura again after so long. He was so beloved by every single person, at least every single person who was left alive after all this. All of them, the bandhu, the word bandhu is used. Bandhu means relative, bandhu means friend, and bandhu, I'm assuming, I don't know enough etymology, but I'm assuming that the English word band and bond come from the Sanskrit bandhu. So all of these people felt this bond, that they were part of the band, part of the group, that were so connected with Vidura and so friendly with, and some of them actually physically related to him, or just friendly with him in so many ways. And they were so happy to see them. It doesn't say in this verse that they were happy, but in the next verse, and Prabhupada's including it in this verse, saying that they were so happy to see him, this word praharshena is used in tomorrow's verse. Harsha means happy, and praharsha means the most happy, like a thrill of rapturous happiness is praharshena. And who is there? Dharmaputra. So Dharmaputra is Yudhishthira. Dharmaputra is Yudhishthira both literally and figuratively. Literally, he's Dharmaputra. He's the son of Dharmaraj, Yamaraj. And also figuratively, he's Dharmaputra because he's so devoted to the principles of Dharma that he's like Dharmaputra, the son of Dharma, in that figurative sense. And who else? Sahanuja, along with all of his younger brothers. So all the other Pandavas, Bhim, Arjuna, and Nakul and Sahadev are all there. And all of them so happy to see Vidura. Vidura, who advised them after Lord Krishna himself. Vidura was the #1 advisor to the Pandavas. And he literally saved their lives more than once in the intrigues with the Kauravas. So Sahanuja, Sutta was there. Sutta means Sanjaya. This term Sutta means someone of mixed caste. So Sanjaya, although he was actually a great sage in his own right and a student of Vyasadeva, but still he was Sutta. His birth was mixed. He was actually the son. Sanjaya was the son of the charioteer of Dhritarashtra. So the Sutta, this mixed birth, this, you could say, lower caste situation he was in. So he was of mixed caste. And Vidura himself was also of this mixed caste. So he was a Sutta also. That was the cause of his being insulted by Duryodhana. So in Vedic culture, of course, the actual standard of Vedic culture is Yasya la lakshanam prokta pumso varna bivyanjakam, as explained in the 7th canto by Narada Muni preaching to Yudhishthira about Varnashram Dharma, that the real principle of caste is that one is judged Yasya ya lakshanam prokta. One is judged to be in a certain caste by their qualification, not by their birth. This is the actual standard of Vedic culture. And yet at the same time, Vedic culture had a lot of casteism in it. Just like Karna, poor Karna. He was also, although he was actually of the highest birth, a queen and a demigod. His birth was so great. But he was thought to be a Sutta, thought to be of mixed race, because he was raised by the charioteer. His mother was Radha, and I don't know, I can't remember his father's name, but he was also of mixed caste. And even, maybe not Yudhishthira himself, but even some of the Pandavas used to taunt him and insult him. Oh, you're a Sutta, you're of mixed caste. So sometimes this casteism was going on even in Vedic times. What to speak of today, this is such a bane on Indian culture. This is why, although Varnashram, as originally conceived by Lord Krishna, Guna Karma Vibhagasha, is glorious and useful, but the way it's enacted in modern times is so disgusting, this casteism. But anyway, Sanjaya was Sutta. Vidura himself was of mixed race. And actually so many great persons. Just like when Baladev went on pilgrimage and he came and met with all the sages, and Romaharshan Sutta, he was called Romaharshan Sutta. He was accepted as a sage. He was given the head seat of the Vyasasan, although he was Sutta, although he was of mixed background. But unfortunately, because he didn't really know how to properly offer respect to Lord Balaram, then Prabhupada comments in Krishna book, I think it is, that although he was accepted, his mixed birth was overlooked and he was given a seat on the Vyasasan. But then when he behaved badly, then immediately everyone again remembered his poor birth, his mixed birth. But then his son, Sutta Goswami, he's called Sutta Goswami because he's also Sutta. But he was so glorious and so qualified. Therefore, it was never an issue that, oh, he's mixed race. No one cared. He's so glorious that he's speaking the Bhagavatam second only to Shukadeva Goswami himself. He's speaking the Bhagavatam. So this is the sort of, not exactly paradox, but the sometimes contradictory views of the Sutta, the mixed race, the high caste and low caste in Vedic culture. Vyasadeva himself. What was Vyasadeva himself? His father was Parashara Muni and his mother was a common fisherwoman. So even Vyasadeva himself And also there's another one mentioned in today's verse, which we'll get to. But anyway, Sanjaya was there. Sanjaya, although he was so dedicated to Dhritarashtra, he was also a great soul and a great devotee and a great qualified sage. And he was also so happy to see his friend Vidura come back. So Sutta, let's see who else. Anyway, Yuyutsu. This is interesting. The name Yuyutsu is mentioned. And Prabhupada says Yuyutsu means Satyaki, who was a great general in Krishna's army, Satyaki. But Yuyutsu is also the name of one of the sons of Dhritarashtra. So I'm not sure which Yuyutsu. Maybe it could refer to both of them. Maybe Yuyutsu. Yuyutsu literally means a great fighter. So maybe that's Satyaki. But Yuyutsu is also the name of a Sutta who was the son of Dhritarashtra along with one of his wife's maidservants. So this Yuyutsu was also a person of mixed caste, but he was also so great that he was greater than all of his half-brothers because he was devoted to Krishna and devoted to righteousness and devoted to the Pandavas, so much so that when the sides were splitting up for the battle of Kurukshetra, who was going to fight on the Kauravas side, who was going to fight on the Pandavas side, this child of this mixed caste child of Dhritarashtra, Yuyutsu, actually chose to fight on the side of the Pandavas. And he was the only member of the Kaurava dynasty, of the Dhritarashtra dynasty, left alive after the Battle of Kurukshetra was over. And therefore he was able to perform all of the funeral rites for all of his relatives after the Battle of Kurukshetra. And not only that, he was a treasured member of the family. Even though he was descended from Dhritarashtra, he was devoted to the Pandavas and devoted to righteousness. So he was very treasured by the Pandavas, so much so that when the Pandavas retired, which is briefly mentioned in today's purport, how the Pandavas retired and went to the north to the mountains, and Draupadi was there and she fell. That's described, and that'll be described later on. That when the Pandavas left, the king, of course, was to be the great Parikshit, their grandchild. But Parikshit was still a child, so Yuyutsu was actually left in charge of the kingdom to manage things until Parikshit was old enough to actually take on the role of king. So this Yuyutsu, another person of mixed caste, but who is so glorious and so qualified in so many ways. So all of these persons, they're there and they're so happy, Praharshena, so blissful, because Vidura, their close friend and relative and beloved devotee, has finally come back. Everyone loved Vidura. He was so beloved by everyone. He was the most intelligent person. Like I said, he was except for Lord Krishna himself, he was the #1 advisor to the Pandavas. He was the reservoir of all good qualities. And when he returned after his long pilgrimage, also described in tomorrow's verse, it said, Prana Tanva Ivagatam, that everyone in the palace, they were just like Prana Tanva Ivagatam, just like a dead body that life had returned to and came back to life. So everyone came back to life. Their consciousness and their happiness and their life was revived by seeing Vidura again. And how qualified is Vidura? Not just because he's a relative. We're all happy to see a relative, but he was not just a relative. He was so qualified in every way. How qualified is he? The entire Canto 3 of the Bhagavatam, the entire Canto 4 of the Bhagavatam is conversations between Maitreya and Vidura. What kind of important person is he? That 2 full cantos of the Bhagavatam are Vidura and Maitreya's questions and answers. How important, what an important person he is. And he saved the Pandava's life. So what an important person he is in Mahabharata history. So he's so key and so qualified and so elevated in every way as a great devotee, as a great advisor, and as a great and loving person. He's such a great Vaishnava and such a kind-hearted person that he even wanted to deliver his evil brother, Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was so offensive, just like we also heard in today's purport, that his wife, Gandhari, blamed him. It's because of you that this fratricidal war is taking place. So the sins and the offenses of Dhritarashtra are unimaginable. But Vidur was so kind. He came back, and one of the reasons he came back was, I want to save this poor sinful brother of mine. So this is the greatness of Vidura. And preaching to a family member is very difficult. Any of us, I don't know, maybe it's different in Indian families, but those of us in Western families may remember when we first came to Krishna consciousness and we tried to explain it to our friends and to our relatives and family, and how hard that was and how not seriously it was taken. Just like I had one friend, my birth name was Adam. And also my best friend at that time, coincidentally, was also named Adam. And we were very close. And we were even interested in spiritual life together, reading Ram Dass and, Vedic stories and different things, and together getting into this, Indian spiritual life. And we were both into it together and very close friends. And he was the one who first brought me to the ISKCON temple to see performance of Ramayan. And I decided to become a devotee, to take this seriously, but he didn't. He decided not to take it seriously. And even, it was actually fun. I haven't been in contact with him in half a century, but it was actually funny that I'd go, we'd go to hang out after I started getting into Krishna consciousness. And I would start talking about, oh, Bhagavad Gita said this, or Prabhupada said that. And he would go, oh, Godhead, not again. And he would sort of make fun of me, and he didn't take it because, we're friends, a friend doesn't have to listen to a friend. Just like Prabhupada says about Krishna and Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita's, it's not just friends talking, but Arjuna had to accept Krishna as a master. So I didn't make much of an impression on that friend, or when I tried to preach to my parents, they weren't very impressed either. There's a saying that not that I'm a saintly person or ever was or ever will be a saintly person, but the saying is that a saintly person is never respected in his own family or in his own village. And because Prabhupada, was it yesterday or the day before, was the anniversary of Prabhupada taking sannyas. So there's a nice story that I read from Harisori Prabhu. Harisori Prabhu was massaging Srila Prabhupada once. And Prabhupada was saying, just see, even we're going out, and in my preaching, practically I'm criticizing everyone, but still people are coming to this movement, and the movement is growing. Even though I criticize everyone, even I criticize my family. So Harisori asked, oh, Prabhupada, did you preach to your family when you were householder? And he said, yes, I tried, but they didn't take very seriously, because they thought, oh, this ordinary person, my husband, my father. And then Prabhupada said, did I ever tell you the story of tea or me? And Harisori had never heard that. He said, no, tell me, Prabhupada, what's the story, tea or me? And Prabhupada explained that his wife was very fond of drinking tea, as is everyone in India. His wife was very fond of drinking tea, but Prabhupada, as a strict Vaishnava, didn't like this drinking tea. So one time he said to his wife, either you give up tea or you give up your husband. And because the wife and the wife thinks the husband is an ordinary person, and the husband thinks wife is an ordinary person. So the wife said, oh, give up tea or give up my husband? I guess then that I'll have to give up my husband, she said jokingly. But Prabhupada took it very seriously. And not long after that, he said, I borrowed 10 rupees from a friend, and I got on a train and I left, and I never saw my wife again. And then a few years after that, he took sannyas initiation, became a sannyasi, never saw his wife again. So that's the story, tea or me, because the preaching to family member is very hard. And actually, Hari Sori said that years later, he was visited by, Prabhupada was visited, one or two of his sons visited a couple of times. And he said to Prabhupada, he said, oh, when we heard you took sannyas, it was like a thunderbolt for the family. So preaching to the family is very hard. But anyway, Vidura, he wanted to do that to save his evil brother, because this is the nature of the Vaishnava. Titikshava Karunika, Surida Sarvadehinam, Ajata Shatava Shanta, Sadhava Sadhu Bhushanam. These are the qualities of a sadhu, of a saintly person, of a great Vaishnava. Not just the qualities, but Sadhu Bhushanam. These are the ornaments that decorate the character of a great devotee. Titikshava Karunika, they tolerate the offenses of others. They're very tolerant of the offenses of others and the offenses that come their way and the difficulties of the material world. They completely tolerate. So they not only tolerate Titikshava Karunika, but they're merciful, even merciful upon the person who commits an offense. Titikshava Karunika, Surida Sarvadehinam. Just like in today's verse, the word bandhu or friend or relative is used. So another word for friend, Surida, is surit. That's surit, friend. Rit means heart. So a person who in their heart is wishing you well. This is surit. This is the highest type of friend, the most intimate type of friend. Just like in English, we have the expression bosom buddy or a bosom friend. We say bosom because the heart is in the bosom. So this is the same idea as surit, that a friend who in your heart loves you and cares about you and always wishes you well. Prabhupada would always sign his letters, your ever well wisher, because he was the surit, the friend for all of his disciples who always wished them well. Surida Sarvadehinam, for all the embodied living entities. He's the friend and well-wisher. Ajata Shatrava Shanta, Ajata Satrava, that he never sees, his enemy was never born. He never sees anyone as his enemy. Shanta, he's always peaceful. Sadhava Sadhu Bhushanam, these are the ornaments that decorate the person of the saintly person. So this is Vidura, this is Srila Prabhupada, the friend to all living beings. And how can you be, Prabhupada once said, you want to be the friend to all living beings, but do you know all living beings? Have you met all living beings? How can you be the friend to all living beings? And the idea is that when you become a friend to Krishna, and Krishna is the source of all living beings, then you can actually be the friend to all living beings. Then you could be Surida Sarvadehinam, the friend to all conditioned souls. And if you're a friend to someone, if you're Surit, you want to be a well-wisher, a do-gooder, you want to benefit people. Vaduda Sarvadehinam, the embodied beings, what are they lacking? What do they need? And what they need is Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a friend is someone who gives you Krishna consciousness. In this material world, Prabhupada once said, oh, now a friend means someone that you go smoke with, and then he goes away, and that's a friend. So a friend is someone who feeds our sense gratification, or feeds our pride, or gives us some mundane sense of well-being. We think, oh, this is a friend. But a real friend is someone who gives us Krishna consciousness. Krishna was Arjuna's best friend, even though Arjuna had to accept him as guru, but he was also best friend because Krishna was giving him the best advice. Even he was criticizing Arjuna, but that criticism was for the sake of elevating him. Therefore, Krishna is the best friend, and the guru is the best friend. What's that? Describing the guru-disciple relationship, Bhagavatam says that this disciple should have a mood of firm friendship with the spiritual master. So firm friendship means friend and well-wisher, but not like an ordinary friend. A firm friendship means you still recognize that he's greater, that he's above you, but he's also a friend. So this is the friendship, real friendship based around Krishna. Vidura with Maitreya was this type of friendship. He went to hear about Krishna from Maitreya, and their questions and answers are such a brilliant part of the Bhagavatam. So this is the friendship between devotees, this exchanging about Krishna. What's that? Kateyantas chamam nityam, tushyanti cha ramante cha. What's the first line of that verse? The third line is Kateyantas chamam nityam, tushyanti cha ramante cha. Anyone can help out? I can't remember right now. Anyway, that's the Bhagavad Gita verse that my devotee, Madchita Madgata Prana, Boreyantak Parasparam, Kateyantas Chamam Nitya Tashyanti Charamanti. This is devotee friendship. Madchita Madgata Prana, that the individual devotees are Madchita, their life, their consciousness, their intelligence is completely absorbed in Krishna individually. Boreyantak Parasparam. But what do? They exchange with each other their realizations in Krishna consciousness. They preach to each other. They glorify Krishna and Krishna's devotees to each other. Madchita Madgata Prana Boreyantak Parasparam. Kateyantas Chamam Nityam. This is what they do all the time. Nityam. They do this all the time, talking about Krishna, engaging in Krishna Katha. Tushyanti cha ramante cha, and they get such pleasure and such satisfaction from that exchange. This is a spiritual friendship, not the sense gratification friendship of the material world. So Vidura with Maitreya, Vidura and Yudhishthira is all centered around Krishna. Vidura and Dhritarashtra all centered around Krishna. With Vidura and Maitreya, Vidura is hearing from Maitreya. With Vidura and Yudhishthira, they are exchanging, although Vidura is the advisor, they're great friends, close friends. And with Vidura and Dhritarashtra, Vidura is preaching to Dhritarashtra. So all of the different types of exchange are there with Vidura, between a higher person, with a peer, with a friend, and with a lower person. Vidura is perfectly exemplifying all the different types of Vaishnava friendship. So therefore, because Vaishnava friendship is so important, how deleterious is Vaishnava aparad? So what is Vaishnava aparad? Hanti nindati vaidveshya Vaishnavam nabinandati kudyate yatino harsham darshane patatani sat. So different types of Vaishnava aparad. One is Hanti, that if you kill a Vaishnava, so yes, if you kill a Vaishnava, that's Vaishnava aparad. That's pretty easy to understand. Hanti nindati, if you criticize a Vaishnava, that's also Vaishnava aparad, Vaishnava offense. To criticize the devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord all over the world. This is Vaishnava aparad. Dveshti, to be envious of the Vaishnavas, is an offense. Nabinandati, to not properly greet a Vaishnava. We know in Vedic culture, we've talked before in previous shlokas and previous chapters about the Vedic culture of greeting a guest. And in fact, in the 5th canto, there's a special hellish planet reserved for grihastas who, when a guest comes to their house, they look at them in an unkind way, give them harsh glance. There's a special hellish planet for not greeting someone nicely. So Nabi Nandati, if you don't greet a Vaishnava nicely, just like look at how Vidura is coming and look at how he's greeted with such enthusiasm and such love and devotion. So this is how you greet a Vaishnava. And if you don't greet him nicely, that's also Vaishnava aparad. Krudyate, if you become angry at a Vaishnava, you don't lose your temper with a Vaishnava. You don't fight with a Vaishnava. We may have so many philosophical disagreements and practical disagreements and managerial disagreements, and there's nothing wrong with discussing that. But you don't become angry with a Vaishnava. You don't lose your temper with a Vaishnava. Kudyate. And yati no harsham darshane, to not be happy upon seeing a Vaishnava. If a Vaishnava comes and you're not happy to see him, that in itself is an aparad. So how important to not commit these both gross and even very subtle offenses. We see a Vaishnava, we should be so happy, so thrilled. Oh, here's a Vaishnava, a representative of Krishna. So wonderful to see such a person. And we need this, and we avoid this Vaishnava aparad, not just for our personal advancement, but this is essential to the success of ISKCON. Prabhupada said, your love will be shown by how you cooperate after I'm gone. Cooperate means working together. That means, again, disagreements may be there, differences of opinion, so many things will be there, but we have to learn how to work together as a happy or relatively happy, peaceful, functional Vaishnav family, all of us under Srila Prabhupada. So we're all serving together despite differences. Radharani is serving Krishna and Chandravali is serving Krishna, and they both have different moods and they both have different opinions, but they're all engaged. And even if they have, arguing exchanges with each other, they're all engaged in serving Krishna together. Sometimes Krishna will be there and his cowherd boyfriends will be there and the gopis will be there. And the cowherd boyfriend and the gopis are arguing like anything. And even, although I said earlier we shouldn't, but even they were insulting each other and joking and poking fun at each other, sometimes in very hilarious ways, but it's all centered on serving Krishna. And the Madhurya Ras devotees are serving in one way, and the Vatsalya Ras devotees are serving in one way, and the Sakya Ras and Dasya Ras, they're all serving in their own way, in their own individual way. And it's not in conflict, rather it's all a beautiful mosaic of different ways of seeing Krishna and serving Krishna and loving Krishna. And they all inspire each other and they all feed each other, and it all just increases and increases, so that the variety is not a conflict, but rather it's a source of beauty and a source of inspiration. Prabhupada said once that just like a bouquet of flowers, a bouquet of one type of flower is not as beautiful as a bouquet of many different types of flowers put together. So we happily accept our differences, our friendships, all the different types of persons and different mentalities and different types of services, the preachers, the scholars, the book distributors, the pot washers, the floor moppers, the managers, the rank and file. We're all different, but we're all appreciating each other's service, and we're all friends, and we're all loving each other as Vaishnavas and serving each other as Vaishnavas. And it's so important. Srila Rupa Goswami includes this as an important part of his Upadeshamrita. In the second mantra of Upadeshamrita, he's describing the things that destroy devotional service. And one of them is jana sangha, associating with materialistic persons, destroys devotional service. And then he says the same thing in a different way in the next mantra. What are the 6 things that elevate one's devotional service? So he expresses the same thing, but in a different way. Sangha tyagat. You want to destroy your devotional service? You make your friendships with materialistic persons. And you want to elevate your devotional service? You avoid the association. Sangha tyagat satovrite. You avoid the association of materialistic persons. So he's saying the same thing in a positive way and in a negative way. And then he discusses the very simple and very beautiful ways of how do we make our friendship with devotees. Dadati pratigrinati bhunkte bojayate chaiva guyamakiti prichati sadvidim priti lakshanam. That you offer gifts and you accept gifts from devotees. and that increases your love for devotees. I'll tell a story. Long ago, I was staying in Vrindavan, and we were using one devotee's home as a sort of a communal kitchen for those of us devotees there who were disciples of His Holiness Satsvarup Maharaj. We were all using that kitchen to cook for him each day. And my day came to cook, and I went and I saw that, the person who had been there previously didn't clean the kitchen when they were done. So I got angry. And I didn't even know who the person was, but within my mind, I was angry and I was criticizing that devotee for not leaving the kitchen clean for me. So anyway, I mentioned it to one or two people, and it got back to that person who, due to circumstances, whatever the reason was, didn't clean the kitchen, and heard that I was a little disturbed by it. So that person bought, you know how they sell Mahaprasad at the back of the temple room in Krishna Balaram there, bought one of these like a chocolate eclair, like a baked good, really delicious. I could still remember the taste of it to this day, filled with like a custard and with a chocolate icing on top, and apologized and offered that eclair to me as a gift. And when I received that gift from that person, not only I immediately gave up any sense of anger that I had at that person, but I felt like such a fool for being angry just by receiving that little gift, that I completely gave up the anger and criticized myself for that anger more strongly than I ever criticized that person for their little mistake or imagined mistake. So the power of giving and accepting a gift from a Vaishnava to increase the Vaishnava love. Bhunte Bhojayate, and that's also Bhunte Bhojayate Chapa, offering a gift, receiving a gift. Just like I also heard a story recently, one devotee, Ranadir, got a sweater from his mother, and he didn't want to wear it because he was living in New Vrindavan in the very, very early days of New Vrindavan. And he said, everything is mud and cow dung there. If I wear it there, it's just going to become a mess. It's a beautiful sweater. Let me give it to Prabhupada. So finally, he offered it to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, oh, no, it's a gift from your mother. You should wear it. And he said, oh, but Prabhupada, I really want to offer it to you. And Prabhupada said, okay. So he was wearing a sweater, like a cardigan. So Prabhupada started unbuttoning his cardigan, and he took off his cardigan and he offered that sweater to the devotee when the devotee offered the sweater to Prabhupada. So it is giving and exchanging gifts, and how much, and that devotee, Ranadir Prabhu, expressing how much love that caused in his heart through that exchange with Srila Prabhupada. So giving and accepting gifts, and we've also maybe experienced that with devotees, giving and accepting gifts. And what's the other one? Guyamakiti Prichati, revealing your mind confidentially, and also hearing confidential talks from the devotees. This means engaging in Krishna Katha. And it also means that if you have some difficulty, you should have a friend that you can express your difficulty to, and that person can confidentially receive it and offer some words of advice, or at least some words of consolation in response. Just like another example in Madhur, no, which is in Vishwanath Chakravarti's book Prema Samputa. Krishna approaches Radharani in disguise. He disguises himself as a heavenly Devi from the heavenly planets. So Radha is speaking with him and doesn't know it's Krishna. And Krishna, disguised as a woman from the heavenly planets, is expressing some great distress that he has. And Radha says that, yes, our distress can only be reduced when we reveal our mind to a confidential and sympathetic friend. So Guyamakiti Prichati, all of these exchanges are going on. And this is how we relate with devotees and develop our love for devotees and appreciate devotees. Sometimes as devotees, we ask, well, but then what do we do with our, we have karmi friends, ordinary people who are friends, or maybe family members or relatives, or people we work with. How do we relate with them? And in response to that, there's many ways to answer that, but in response, Prabhupada told a story once. This is a story from Hitopadesh, but Prabhupada adjusted it to his own purposes. Then the story goes like this. Once there was a monkey, and he was living in a rose apple tree. And he happened to become friends with a crocodile who was living in the river that flowed just by on the bank that rose apple tree the monkey lived in. And they become friends, and the monkey would offer rose apples to the crocodile, and they became actually close friends. But then one day the crocodile's wife said, "You have this friend as a monkey, but you're a crocodile. I'm a crocodile. And also because that monkey eats rose apples all day long, his flesh must be so sweet. So bring that monkey here so I can rip out his heart and eat his heart." And the crocodile didn't really want to do it, but what you could do, he was a henpecked husband, and his wife was insisting. So one day he went to his monkey friend, and he didn't want to, but he was sort of forced into it. He said to his monkey friend, "Oh, my wife really wants to meet you. She wants to," just like the joke, sometimes this joke is in some movies. "Oh, we want to have you for dinner. We want to have you over for dinner." So he said, "Hop on my back and I'll take you to meet my wife." So because they were friends, the monkey agreed. He hopped on the crocodile's back, and as they were discussing, the crocodile was feeling guilty. The crocodile was swimming through the river to his home with the monkey on his back. So they're in the middle of the river. The monkey can't really escape. So the crocodile is feeling guilty and reveals his mind as a confidential friend, although maybe not the best friend. It says, "Actually, I hate to tell you this, but I'm taking you there so that my wife can kill you and rip out your heart and eat your heart, which she is thinking must be so sweet and delicious from your constant diet of rose apples." So the monkey thought very quickly, and he says, "Oh, you're my good friend. So of course I would very happily give my life and give my heart for your wife to eat. But you know what? You called me in such a rush to come and go with you that I left my heart behind up in my tree. So take me back to the shore. I'll go get my heart and I'll hop back on your back, and then we could go greet your wife." So the foolish crocodile took him back to the shore, and the monkey ran up his tree. And of course, he didn't come back down and didn't jump on the crocodile's back. So the moral of the story, which is different than the moral given in Hitopadesh, but the moral for this purpose is that you may have to associate with materialistic persons, and you may even have some degree of friendship with material persons, but you don't give them your heart. Your heart is reserved for Krishna and Krishna's devotees. We can have all sorts of friendships and exchanges with all sorts of people, but if we give our heart to the materialists, it will simply be devoured. And if we give our heart to Krishna and Krishna's devotees, then we'll end up in this very happy situation like Vidura coming home, and will simply be elevated in Krishna consciousness. And time is running out, so I'll just finish off very briefly that the very definition of a neophyte devotee, or a materialistic devotee, or a materialistic person masquerading as a devotee, the actual definition of such a person is that they do not know how to respect a devotee. Archayame eva hareye, pujam yashradeye hate, natad bhakteshu chanyeshu sabakta prakrita smritaha. That someone may be a devotee, they're worshiping Krishna very nicely according to all rules and regulations. But if they don't know how to respect a devotee, if they don't know how to love a devotee, if they don't know how to fill their lives with Krishna Katha between devotees and do the 6 kinds of exchange with devotees, then sa bhakta prakrita smrita, their bhakta prakrita, a materialistic devotee, or Prabhupada in explaining this verse goes even farther. And he says, not only they're a materialistic devotee, but actually they're only bhakta abhas, or bhakta praya, which means they're only a pseudo devotee, a reflection of a devotee or an imitation devotee. So how key is this idea? And how beautiful is Vidura's exchange with Yudhishthira and all the family members, exemplifying how devotee friends relate to each other. I actually have so much more notes to go, but time is out. Hopefully that was interesting and helpful. Hare Krishna. If there's any questions or comments, we can discuss now. It's a big topic, how to have our nice relationships with devotees.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so very much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, thank you to you.
So we have 100 from Jaganas Prabhu. Jaganas Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, sir.
Dandavat pranam all Gosha Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Prabhu, I have a question on your statement. You said saintly person is never respected by their own family members.
That's a common saying, yes.
Common saying, but it happens actually. How to preach them, or how to preach to our own family members in a nice way, or any other suggestion?
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard, and also it's something that I was with my family. I was also not very good with. Myself personally, I came on very strong to my parents when I became a devotee, and they were also very angry about it. And for a little while, they wouldn't even talk to me, which was sad because my family, we were actually very close, and we grew up a very close and very loving family. But they were so upset. And of course, if there's actually love in the family, how long can they last? So after a very short time, my mother gave up the silence ban, but my father, it took longer. But eventually we got over it, and I was never really able to preach to them or explain things to them very much. But just because they loved me and because they saw that what I had become was not so terrible, they developed a little appreciation for Krishna consciousness. My mother told me a story about this once after they had come around and we had become friendly again. My mother was talking with a bunch of her she was pretty elderly at the time, talking with a bunch of her elderly old lady friends. And they were talking about their children, as mothers do, and especially as Jewish mothers do. They love to talk about their children. So one of the ladies said, oh, my one son, he's, he was doing well, but then he got involved in drugs, and now he has a drug problem, and he's going through legal issues. And oh my God, it's so terrible dealing with my son. How horrible. And then another old lady said something like, oh, my daughter, she's on her third marriage and it's heading for divorce, and the families are broken and the children are this and that. Oh, it's so horrible. And then they said to my mother, so Natalie, what about your son? How's your son Adam doing? And she said, oh, my mother passed away quite a few years ago. I don't actually think of her that often. So it's nice for me to think of her a little bit now. And she said, oh, my son Adam, he became a Hare Krishna. He's the head priest in the Boston Hare Krishna temple now. And he doesn't do drugs, and he doesn't chase women, and he doesn't go out drinking in bars, and he seems to be happy, and we're close and we talk all the time. And one of the other old ladies said, oh, I wish my son had become a Hare Krishna too. And my mother told me that that's when she realized that, oh, not so bad that you became a Hare Krishna. So I didn't really preach to her that much, but just by being a devotee, she gradually got a little appreciation. But I also know families where they actually preached very nicely to their parents, and even the parents and brothers, sisters actually became devotees. I wasn't very expert. I wasn't able to do that. But you don't want to alienate these people who do have a natural affection and a natural bond. But when there's opportunities, you can preach a little. Mainly, you can preach by your behavior, being very first class. You could offer prasad. You could give gifts, or do these things. That the same thing. Dadati pratigrinati, bhunte bojayate chaiva, guyamakiti prichadi, by speaking nicely with them, and by hearing from them, by offering gifts, by offering prasad. So it's very individual. Every family is different. Every friendship is different, and it'll be exchanged in different ways. So you have to be a little sensitive, a little intelligent. And if you are, and if you want to help these people, you'll figure out a way to do it. Is that helpful at all, Prabhu?
Yeah, yes, Prabhu. Yeah, that helps. Yeah, I was also thinking on the same line, but I wanted to get a suggestion from the senior devotees, and that helps. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Anything else? It's late, so any other quick questions or just announcements for today? We're continuing with the awesome sixth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Ashtanga Yoga discussion in tonight's Sunday feast program.
Yeah, you already announced. So these are the announcement for today. We'll be having as usual Sunday program, and Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter Ashtanga Yoga is going up. So that's all. We do not have as today we'll be having a special like Bhadra Purnima, so gifting Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, so that we will be eligible to directly go to the Vaikuntha, to serve Vishnu,
Awesome.
Lord Krishna. So anyone, if we are interested, so we can sponsor for Srimad Bhagavatam for any of the relative, friends, or anybody, and more announcement will be there in the temple.
Good. Excellent way to preach to a relative. Give them a Bhagavatam.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Speaking
And,
tonight, please. Hare Krishna.
Yes, go ahead, Mother.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Who's speaking tonight? Are you giving class?
No, not me. I'm not sure who is.
Does anyone know?
No, Mataji,
I'm not sure.
I do not know. Yeah.
I'm speaking next Sunday night, but I don't know who's speaking tonight. I'm sure it'll be awesome. Yes, Mataji, you have a quick question. It's late, so quick.
Yes,
Vindhyavali Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. It was a nice class and lot of information about Kunti Maharani and then other ladies.
It was nice, wasn't it? That Prabhupada focused just on the ladies
As
and
you
his
said,
purport. That was
yes,
sweet.
That was sweet. As you said, if anybody comes home, the house lady, if she's not smiling or inviting, that's really whether it is aparadha or something. It's very inconvenient for the visitor who goes to that house, either male or female, So this person is not smiling or inviting, welcoming. It's very hard to go into that house. That was one point I liked very much. And I would like to ask, did Dhritarashtra got any privilege to see that universal form of Krishna?
Dhritarashtra, I know Sanjaya described it to him, but I don't know about him actually getting the vision to see it. Maybe that's in Mahabharata. I'm not familiar enough to comment on that.
I thought because Sanjay, they both used to listen to these Advaitatmics, these things, and Dharma Sutras, So that listening, I think Shravanam made him to see Krishna. I thought so. I don't know. I just want to ask you.
Yeah. Hearing is also seeing. It's like seeing, but specifically what you're referring to, I can't comment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Just wanted to tell on that, not on the like by divine eye, but when Krishna came for the Santi as a Santi Dut, so there he shown the Vishwarupa from so there he experienced means that because he was not having eye to he did not see. But Bhishma and all they saw, Bhishma, Vidura and all saw on that time only. So that's so Dhritarashtra had experience. That's what he went to the higher plan.
Oh, okay.
Because that is the reason, he must have heard everything, though he cannot see. So he must have got the privilege, I think.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everybody. Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Everyone have a great day.